I'm going to read my Homage to Max from the Quimper Poems. Max Jacob died of pneumonia on the 5th of March 1944 at the hospital of the Drancy prison camp just outside Paris, where he was awaiting transport to Auschwitz. He was a poet and a painter who shared with Picasso not only the invention of Cubism, but also a bed in a box and cox arrangement where one slept while the other one was at work. Picasso was also the sponsor at his Christian baptism. He had visions of Christ in a cinema while watching a film called The Black Suit Gang, and in his billet on the Rue Ravignan in Montparnasse. He was finally arrested as a Jew at the church of Saint-Benoît-sur-Loire, where he assisted the priest. The homage I'm going to read relates a number of things Max and I shared in and about Quimper, where he was born and which a plaque by Jean Cocteau commemorates. The angels shared in the poem referred to is a term given to the thousands of gallons of cognac which are lost in the process of maturation. Here are two heads by Cocteau, drawn by Paul Jackson in this case. There we are. The upper one is the one used in the plaque outside the house where he was born. Before I begin, however, I need to read one of his prose poems from his last poems called Love of One's Neighbour. This should clarify various references concerning the lucky toad. This is the Love of One's Neighbour for Jean Rousselot. Who has seen a toad crossing the road? It's a very little man. A doll is no smaller. He drags himself on his knees. One might say he's ashamed of himself. No, he's rheumatic. One leg out in front, he drags the other after him. And where he's going like this? He's crawling out of the gutter, poor clown. No one's noticed this toad in the street. No one used to notice me in the street. Now, children make fun of me because of my yellow star. Lucky toad, you don't have a yellow star. Homage to Max. You are right. Our dreams are not mere dreams. Sooner or later they turn out true, however impossible. Like yours. They were waiting for you on the steps as you came out of church. You must have recognized them, there like a cliché waiting. They had been waiting for you nigh on 70 years there, and you had lived with them knowing that one day a dream would stare you in the face and make you answer questions. There they were. The young one, tall and obedient, ready to kill on command, whose face had learnt to live without expression. And the other, much older, shrewder, knowing the force of fear, knowing the agonies of spiritual loss and how to bruise the soul. The questions that will be put like the arrows to Saint Sebastian, but barbed so as to make removal wounding. The pain must be digested, and the sorrow, and the shame, and everything else that judgment has exposed. They didn't know what they were doing, other than that they were obeying orders. And you, taken with the undigested God inside you, outwardly terrified, though inwardly already in heaven, where you had lived for years. You're right. Our dreams are more truly who we are and we take them everywhere we go, even to Gestapo headquarters to face the temptation. And I have something to confess. Not every toad is lucky. There's one that I can't get out of my memory, whose life is still on my hands. I've chosen you for my confessor. It was years ago. I was turning over with a fork the soil to make a garden. It was thick with couch grass, so overgrown that I had to put the fork in hard to find the soil at all. With one such thrust, I speared a toad, the colour of soil, and with infinite patience it looked at me, dumbfounded. I looked back, and death was a fork I held between us. I do still. What wrongs I have done to men I can attempt to justify, but how can I ever expiate this accident? And all the horror of man-made evil ranks with me less than this absurd compassion. I know that you will understand. I know the God of Jacob is in sympathy with private pain and follies of love. I know that it's good to show our shame and not have it forced upon us like bright yellow stars upon our sleeves for all the world to see. But the SS and all the world didn't have the wit to see what you had inside of you. Yes, they knew you were a poet, a fool, a clown, and none the richer for it. They didn't know that you had hidden jewels inside you, like the Jews that fled from Jerusalem, Josephus writes of. Their neighbours slit their stomachs to get their hands on them. In your case, they wouldn't have found the treasure. It was far deeper in your heart than that, deeper than all taxation reaches. The city of God was there, and the Lord himself, and the knowledge of God, and the source of abiding wisdom, and who will give you a quote on that? Wisdom that is the art of making good out of what the world throws at us, which pleases, which surprises him. Yes, the knowledge of God is priceless, but it can't be given away. There's not the demand for it. We start by loving God for the goods he gives us. The graduating saint moves on to loving him for what he is. That's how the Lord loves us. Not for our doings, and surely not for our attainments, as he told me in the cathedral, but for who we are. We are with him in an actual conspiracy, so close, so secret, we cannot say whose word is whose. Looking at the town from the dazzling disk where the Ode opens out, can we say for sure what God has made, what man has? Or is it every whit collaboratory, the market that marks the meeting of the rivers? But why evil prospers, why the ugly flourishes, and why beauty goes begging? That is a thing we have to learn for ourselves in a season when our understanding is ripe, and no doubt in the end we'll die for it, and most like ironically as you did, cheating the Nazis and your friends alike, spurning their pardon as well as their poor persecution with pneumonia. Above the bed in the Drancy prison hospital, your smiling spirit looked down on the body of Max, saying, "Lucky toad," by way of an epitaph. I made you a small anthology of wayside flowers, the mist of Finisterre still on them, I knew you'd like, and left it on your window ledge, as near to your plaque as I could. Erwan, looking sober, was with me. Next day, I found it in the rubbish bin. I took it out and placed it on the open umbrella with its Coca-Cola ad, I thought you'd like that too. And I would have made a laurel crown, but you already had one from Jean Cocteau. I gave you a tribute of tears, of sorrow and of joy. And I went away to look for beauty where you had left it. And you came along as well. There it is, you said. What's stopping you? It's everywhere you look. Let's be voyeurs together. Let's take on the universe, all of its rhymes, like those trees that are doubled in the water. See, it isn't just repetition. The direct view looks down on the upper sides of leaves. Those on the black stair surface show the undersides Picasso-esquely. Yes, I said. And I remember seeing the counterpoints and triple cross rhythms making a ribald royal music in Kesik's Grete long ago. What of the wonderful magpie I heard in the wooded hills of Kronen, riffing a theme from the Rite of Spring he must have got from Stravinsky? Well, the world is full of wit, but it takes a poet to want it. The girl in the dress shop I surprised. She was dancing to the music outside in the street, but when she noticed me seeing her, how she was full of her joy. I can hold it, how shy she was of her joy. I can hold it in my head, the stately, cleanly largo music of all the rivers of France that are flowing now. I sit on this bench and watch the whimsies pass. The lady just gone, whose long baguette protruding forwards from her shopping bag makes with the rhythm of her walking a most droll phallic movement. Is it in the world, this wit, or in the head? Look at the leaf falling towards its image in the water. See how they meet in one another's arms. Look how at one they are. Look at the mother with her little girl at play in the park. See how she schools the child in fun. I know the news is all disaster, but here the facts are speaking for themselves. They're owning up, and I let them. Energies and powers locked and interred in the rocks of the earth, and its words so free and always available. He who invented death is the one who also invented life. He makes his guest appearances where and when he will, as you know only too well, on a screen in someone else's film that one man only in the audience had eyes to see. In your own bedroom you just bend down to take your shoes off, and when you get up there's God. What a very clownish way to introduce himself. The face of Christ that comes to transfigure your self-portrait, as one may look into a mirror and see an angel. God who is behind our eyes as well as before. We know he is in the future, but not that he was our past, not that he is about us now, although we probably wouldn't recognize him, sitting beside us in the cinema. Our prejudice will not tolerate a shabby God, one that is humble, one that is poor, Deus et infans, divinity with an umbrella, God that is almost out of his mind with what has to be endured, with what great good has all been wasted, with what pit of sadness man has dug himself. A seemly war memorial, in that shows a Breton wife and daughter whose unspoken tears accuse the planet. Mon Dieu, vous m'avez blessé d'amour. God, you've blessed me with the wound of love. And you, Max, son of Jacob, magic lantern of men, licentious, literal, loving the clownishness of it all, the rich, irreverent creation. Max, I salute you. I wave my glass full of the ruby joy that the grape has shed its blood for. You can pledge me from the angels' share. I honour you on the Feast of Transfiguration, in which we toast the life to come. I string these words with a ribbon of joy for you. and I lift my glass again to a friend in heaven, where now, with style, with connoisseurs' vanity and pride, with a last laugh when all is said and done, like a daffodil come up to town, like Sol Invictus on a lorica, you wear at last the yellow star of the sun.